was kicking my little feet. This book is so horny. This book should be required reading. I don't like it. I don't like it. I didn't like it. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be reading Booktubers' favorite books of 2023. This is, I think, my 5th year doing this video, and it is always my favorite video to film every year, and I usually find some new favorite books. This year I have 3 different criteria that I am looking for. I'm going to choose the top 2 books that I see in all of the videos that I watch. I will be reading those. Then I'm going to be figuring out who my booktube twins are. These are going to be the people that have the most of my 5-star books in their videos, and I'm gonna find my top 4 booktube twins and read another book on each of their lists. And then the last category are the Riley picks. This is gonna be like my free pass to read whatever I want. So when I'm watching all of these videos, if there's something that I see that sounds very interesting to me or that I'm really gravitating towards, I'm just gonna add it onto the TBR. So I think I will allow myself like 3 Riley picks. And then on my Patreon, I'm gonna be doing an extended version of this vlog where I'm gonna be reading a few books that I see that are on Booktubers' best lists and also Booktubers' worst lists. So that is gonna be on my Patreon. Those are all the ways that I am choosing this TBR. I'm very excited to figure out what I'm gonna be reading and start this vlog. I have an entire playlist of all of the videos that I watched to collect all of this information. I have figured out what are the top 2 books amongst all of the booktubers that I subscribe to. I really wasn't looking outside of my subscription box for videos. I was just watching all of the ones that were popping up in my feed. But we have the top 2, and those are The 7-Year Slip and Monstrilio. So The 7-Year Slip was on 6 different booktubers lists: Gabby, Deja, Haley, Gabby, Tori, and Shar. And I am really excited to read this one. I have already read an Ashley Poston book and I really enjoyed it. So I was kind of hoping that this would show up in a lot of videos so that I could read it. And then the other book, which was on 4 booktubers lists, is Monstrilio. This was on Gabby, Stephanie, Deja, and Kayla's videos. And this one is a horror book that I have been hearing really great things about. I'm not surprised to see this on so many people's lists because I know that since it was published, a lot of people have been enjoying this. So The 7-Year Slip and Monstrilio are the 2 books that I will be reading for the top books on BookTube.
7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I feel like this book is easy to miss the beauty of. It was one of those books where I wanted to read it slow to just really enjoy every word that she chose.
I just really loved everything about this. I had a smile on my face the entire time I was reading this. They just made me feel so giddy and so warm inside.
I would definitely say that Ashley Poston's style of writing is not like your typical rom-com. Like, her books definitely feel a little bit more hard-hitting. In my opinion, I feel like they sway more to the contemporary genre.
What she did in this book and the way she wrote about grief and talked about grief and how it's not a linear thing really hit me.
I like my romances that have a little something extra to them, whether it is a little darkness to them, whether it has a little like emotional depth to them, something. And this one had that emotional depth element that I really, really loved.
Each of these characters were individuals and stood on their own, had their own goals and their own lives. And there was this underlying conversations about how people change over the years. And if you fall in love with one version of a person, in this case, the person 7 years in the past, can you still love that person after they've changed in the future?
I'm gonna be starting The 7-Year Slip. I'm so excited. I have read one book by Ashley Poston before. I read The Dead Romantics and I loved it. It was such an unexpectedly cute and heartwarming romance book. So I've been very, very excited to pick this up, and I'm really glad that this was the most popular book among all of the booktubers that I watch. So Ashley Poston's romances have some sort of like little magical twist in them, and in this one it's about 2 people who are living in the same apartment but they're 7 years apart in time, and the apartment is like allowing them to connect to each other, and they can only see and speak to each other when they're in the apartment. I'm just so excited. Everybody loves this book, so I'm gonna start reading it right now and I'll give you guys like my little first impression. I just got to the part where they met each other for the first time. The main character, Clementine, is dealing with a lot of grief. She was very, very close to her aunt. They would travel the world together. Her aunt just committed suicide recently, and so she's dealing with all of that trauma and grief, and she is living in her aunt's apartment. She had always told her it was like very, very magical, and she gets home one day to the apartment and this random dude is in there. And she's like, what the fuck, who are you? And he shows her that he has a note from her aunt that he's gonna be living there for the summer. And she's like, how did he get this note from my aunt who's dead? And then she realizes that everything that she was told about this apartment and that it's magical and that it like travels through time was true. I really like it so far. The guy, I love him. He is a chef. And I love chef romances, I really do. I have not read nearly enough, but every time I have read it, I just love it. And there's just something about Ashley Poston's writing where I feel like she combines like heavier subject matter with like cute rom-com vibes very well. So I'm really enjoying this. Okay, I am now like halfway into the 7-Year Slip. I think I'm gonna read this in one sitting, but oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. Oh my God, I'm loving it. Basically, she and the guy, 7 years in the past, have like fallen in love. They're really, really into each other. And then one day she's at work and a new client comes in who's a chef, and it's the guy. It's the same guy, but his present day self. And he's so different. Like, he could not be more different than the 7 years ago version of him that she's been basically living with and falling in love with. And she's like, what the hell? Like, how did he change so much? And like, everything about his personality is different. His dreams are different. His beliefs are different. Like, he's just so different. And so she's trying to figure out like what happened in those 7 years to make him change so much. And he also like acted like he barely knew her, and like, oh my God, I kind of feel like it's like almost the best of both worlds, because past version of him is like a sunshine cinnamon roll, and then current version of him is like grumpy, pessimistic, kind of aloof. And it's literally the best of both worlds with like the two types of love interests that I really like. And yeah, there's this whole plot where he's like the hot celebrity chef and he's opening up a new restaurant. He wants to publish a book, and that's why he's working with Clementine, because she's a book publicist. And it's so good. I don't know if I'm loving this so much because I love chef romances and I'm like really into that aspect of it. But I also just love Ashley Poston's writing. It's just giving me like that like warm, happy feeling. I wouldn't say that I love the main character, like she's fine. I love the love interest. I love him. I just really, really love like a sweet, kind man. He's like the star of the show for me, honestly. Like Clementine is fine, but I love him so much, and that's what's really making the book for me. I finished. I did not intend to read this book in one sitting. It's only been like 2 hours. I like flew through it. It was so cute. Oh my God, it was so cute. I don't know if I liked it more than the Dead Romantics. Like, I loved the Dead Romantics, so I don't know if I liked it more than that, but I loved it. Ashley Poston is definitely a new like favorite romance author. I will read any of her books now. I also really, really enjoyed the level of spice that was in here, which was not at all. And it was more like, not closed door, but more fade to black. I don't know, I think lately I've just been not super into the very heavy, spicy, steamy romance books. I still enjoy them every once in a while, but I don't know. This is just my opinion. Lately, they've been getting a little too much. A little too much. And I felt like the level that it was in here was the perfect amount, where there was like the right amount of tension and like enough was described, but it didn't go on and on and on and on and on. Like if I'm flipping and we're still in a sex scene, I'm like, okay, when is it done? When are they gonna take a little break? But I feel like in this book, it was just the perfect amount. I think I'm gonna be giving this 4.5 stars. It feels like 5 stars, but I'm gonna do 4.5. I didn't love it as much as the Dead Romantics, and I mostly loved it for the love interest and his whole chef plot line. I really did enjoy the magical element in here. I kind of like how in both this one and the Dead Romantics, like the magical element of the book isn't super explained. I don't know, I just feel like it works and gives this like very slight whimsy to the book that I personally don't need an explanation to, because it's not like it's a fantasy book. And this was so cute. I'm so glad, because so many booktubers love this, but this was definitely a win for me.
Monstrilio. This one is one that was very heartbreaking. This is about grief.
And it really is just so beautifully written and beautifully told, and it's such an interesting exploration of grief that I never even thought that I needed.
This is like one of those weird literary horror books that just gets under your skin and makes you think about it long after you finish it.
It's heart-wrenching, the relationships are messy, but it's so beautifully told and one of just the best debuts I've ever read.
It is 2 a.m. I have been staying up way past my normal bedtime. I'm typically like in bed by 8 o'clock and asleep by like 10, but I messed up my sleep schedule, so I'm awake. And I have been awake super late every single night, and I'm never like actually doing anything productive. I'm just on TikTok or watching Netflix. So instead, I'm going to start reading Monstrilio. What I know about this is that it is a more literary horror book about grief. It is about a mother whose son dies, and then I think she takes a part of his lung and is able to grow a little creature out of the piece of the lung. I'm gonna be honest, of all the books that I'm reading in this video, I think this is the one that I'm the least excited by. It's not that I don't think I'm gonna like it, it's just, it's the only book that wasn't something that I specifically chose / was already on my TBR, because this was one of the top books. The other top book was The 7 Year Slip, which I was already planning on reading at some point because I really liked the Dead Romantics, but this one, I don't really know that I had an intention to ever read it. I do like how in these videos, it pushes me to pick up books that were on my TBR, and previous years, I found 5 stars from those books. I'm going in open to it. I'm just not like as excited to read it as I am a lot of the other books on this TBR, but we will see. I do not know how far into this book I am. This is the only book I don't have a physical copy of because I could not find a physical copy. Like literally could not find a physical copy. I couldn't buy it anywhere. My library didn't have it. I couldn't find it used. Like I tried to get a physical copy of this book. A lot of bookstores aren't selling the hardcover anymore because the paperback is about to come out at the end of this month. I think it's split up into different perspectives. This first chapter, which I'm using air quotes because it was like 2 hours of the audiobook, so it was pretty long. The first chapter is from the mother's perspective after her son dies, and she takes a piece of his lung, and through this like ritual, the lung comes to life and is like morphing into this little creature. I really liked this section of the book. It went very weird and unhinged, and I'm liking the direction that it's going. I'm not sure how I feel about a perspective changing now. Like I was kind of surprised when that happened. I literally like I only listened to the first minute of the next perspective, and I was like, oh, who's this? like what's happening here? Because I was really enjoying the mom's perspective. So we'll see how that goes with the rest of the book and who the other perspectives are. Because I don't have a physical copy, I can't even check. So it's a mystery to me. I will say I'm not loving the writing as much. It's very just like straightforward and matter of fact, like I did this, then I did this, then I did this, then I did this. I like a little fanciness, but it's not so bad that's in a way that's making me dislike what's happening. I just can't say that I particularly love the writing, but we will see how it goes with the other perspectives. You guys, I finished Monstrilio. I hate this. I don't like this. I don't like reading people's favorite books and then coming on here and saying, I don't like it. I don't like it. I didn't like it. So this book is split up into 4 perspectives. If the first perspective following the mother had been a novella and it just ended, 5 stars. 5 stars. I would have loved it. I loved the first perspective. Unfortunately, the other 3, I did not like at all. It took a very weird sexual turn. Like all the other perspectives had very weird sex scenes that made me very uncomfortable. I've talked about this before. Weird sex in horror books makes me feel a certain type of way, and I didn't like that. I did not like it at all. And then the second perspective is from the point of view of a queer woman, and her perspective in particular made me feel bad. It made me feel weird. There was a thing that happened in it that I'm like, it felt like that stereotype of queer women being predatory towards straight women. I don't know. It was... I was just getting a bad vibe from it. I felt bad. There was a particular scene that I read as sexual assault, but it wasn't framed that way. It made me uncomfortable the way that the queer woman was written. And if it was done in a way where I feel like there was like discussion and commentary behind it, that would have been fine. I got a bad vibe from it. I really did. And then the other two perspectives also had weird sexual elements to it that I did not like. Even their sexual scenes, like the two men, weren't written the same way that the queer woman was. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else read this and feels the same way as me. Just as a queer woman, I just got a bad vibe. I got a bad vibe. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to the booktubers who love this. The first perspective was amazing. Really, the first perspective was so good. I wish that was the end of the book because it would have been 5 stars, but I am giving it a 2. I'm giving it a 2 because I did love that first perspective. If I didn't, it would be 1 star. Like the rest of the book was 1 star. The mom's perspective was so good. I just really wish that was a short story because it was great, like that part. I'm giving it a 2 star. I feel so bad. I feel so bad because I don't like reading people's favorite books and then not liking them, which I guess is the whole concept of this video. But this has never happened before. Every other time that I've done this, I give all the books 3 stars or up. This is the first, and I don't like it. I don't like the feeling. I'm so sorry. To the booktubers who loved this, I love you guys. I'm so sorry. So now I am going to be figuring out who are my booktube twins. These are the booktubers who have the most of my 5-star books in their favorites list. I will be choosing another book from their list to read. So I was going to pick my top 4 booktube twins. However, there is a 3-way tie. So I actually have 5 booktubers here. So I'll start with the bottom and we'll work my way to the top, my number 1 booktube twin. So we'll start with 3rd place where there is a 3-way tie. 3 different booktubers had 4 of my favorite books on their favorites list. We have Jenny from The Story Ain't Over, Anshula from Passport to Eden, and Leonie from the book Leo. Jenny had Emily Wilde, Hellbent, A Dowry of Blood, and Finlay Donovan. And she had a few books on her list that sounded really interesting to me, but one that I think she sold me on the most is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is actually a nonfiction memoir, which isn't something that I would normally pick up, but the way that she talked about it just made it sound so great. So that is the one that I will be choosing from her list. So from Leonie's list, she had Nettle and Bone, Hellbent, Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, Slewfoot, and she had a lot of other books on her list that I have had my eye on, but the one that I want to read the most is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chachki, which you'll see in a minute why I picked this one specifically, but I am very excited to read that. And then from Anshula's list, she had Legends and Lattes, A Psalm for the Wild Built, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and A Dowry of Blood. And then the book from her list that I am choosing is called Kim Ji-young, born 1982. This is a Korean translated book that she just made sound very interesting. I have never heard of it before, but I have been trying to read a lot more translated works in the past year, so I feel like this is going to be a really good one. In 2nd place, we have Laura from A Book Circus. She has 5 of my favorite books on her list: Legends and Lattes, A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, Slewfoot, Fourth Wing, and Hellbent. Now, you might be like, Riley, I thought you were saying you didn't like Fourth Wing. Listen, I didn't like Iron Flame. I liked Fourth Wing. I would be a liar if I didn't count Fourth Wing because I did really love that book. So Laura actually also had Last Tale of the Flower Bride on her list. So now 2 of my booktube twins have Last Tale of the Flower Bride. And then lastly, my number 1 booktube twin, which comes as absolutely no surprise, and that is Sarah, from Sarah Without an H. She has 7 of my 5-star books on her list. This really comes as no surprise because Sarah is one of my closest friends. We read a lot of each other's favorite books. So on her list, she had Silver Under Nightfall, Ninth House, Project Hail Mary, The 5th Season, Born Darkly, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and Mindfuck. And the book that I'm choosing from her list to read is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. So not 1, not 2, but 3 of my booktube twins all had had The Last Tale of the Flower Bride on their list, which just gives me all the hope in the world that I'm really gonna love this one. Those are the books that I'm gonna be reading from my BookTube twins. I am very excited for these because they're all so different. So hopefully from reading my BookTube twins' favorite books, I will be able to find a lot of new favorites.
In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Reading this book just felt like I was holding in an astonished breath. Every line was just so beautiful or packed such a punch. And even though this is such a short book, I read it in like a few hours. I was just so blown away by the entire thing. And to this day, it just sticks in my memory as such an incredible book.
This book is broken up into different parts. I decided every night I would read one part of the book. I read part 1, which is 60 pages, and I'm already loving it. The way that this book is written is just so interesting, and unlike any nonfiction or memoir that I've ever read, it reads more like it is fiction than nonfiction. I feel like if you aren't super familiar with nonfiction, but you want to like get into it, this would be a great place to start because it really does read like a fictional story. It's told in little vignettes. So each little piece of the book is just like a page or two, and each vignette has a theme that are different like common tropes. Through the course of this book, it is chronologuing a toxic relationship, but each vignette is kind of told in that trope or theme that it is connecting it to, it's honestly hard to explain this concept, but it's just super interesting. Like Dream House as time travel. Dream House as stranger comes to town. I've genuinely never read a book written like this. It is so creative and captivating, and I just honestly keep wanting to pick it up. Like I didn't want to stop at 60 pages, but I'm trying to force myself to slow down a little bit because there is a lot to digest within this story. It's a very complex, tumultuous, toxic relationship that is slowly unfolding. There's a lot to process and think about, so I don't want to just blast through it. I'm trying to take my time, but I am already loving it so much. I have finished In the Dream House, and this is 5 stars. I loved this book so much. I've never loved a memoir this way. Genuinely, just the way that it was written was so creative and captivating. I felt like I couldn't look away. It was just an incredibly raw and creative way to tell a memoir. I just had such a visceral reaction to it, and I think this book explores a very important topic, and that is abuse in queer relationships, specifically queer women, which is definitely something that people want to pretend isn't happening, or that, you know, women aren't capable of doing, that women in same-sex relationships aren't capable of being abusive to their partner. This book touches on a lot of themes of understanding what queer relationships are, understanding what abuse is, recognizing these patterns. I actually thought it was very interesting because there was a lot of parallel between In the Dream House and Bloom, which you guys know was my favorite book of last year. I feel like these two books explore the same themes of a woman getting into her very first same-sex relationship and thinking that because she's now dating a woman, it's going to be perfect, then slowly discovering that that relationship can still be toxic. I feel like this is the realistic, like real life example, and then this is the more dramatic horror version, but I feel like these are very good book pairings. If you've read one, I would recommend the other for sure. And it's interesting too because one of the critiques that I've seen of Bloom lately is that people didn't find the relationship in here to be realistic, where the main character is really ignoring all of these red flags because she's with a woman and she really feels safe with a woman until it's like too late and she's in too deep. And I've been seeing critiques that people think that's unrealistic, and then this literally shows that it is realistic and it does happen. So yeah, 5 stars. This was an amazing pick. I'm glad that Janani had this on her list so that I could read it.
I know people often say that you can get lost in a book, but I feel like this book you can actually get lost in. This gothic tale is so full of rich environments and folklore references and myths that it really feels like you are roaming through the rooms of this gothic mansion.
We have a complicated, toxic exploration of a female friendship. We have a beautiful romance. We have a twist that I did not see coming, honestly, all with beautiful lyrical purple prose.
The writing in here is still delectable. Like, if you read this, you'll be feasting. You'll be licking your fingers like you will not be hungry after you read this.
I started The Last Tale of the Flower Bride last night, and I already love the writing. I'm not 100% sure what it is about yet, but oh my god, the first little page, the prologue, Let me just read this to you because I was like, oh my God. You warned me that knowing your secrets would destroy us. At first, it sat in our marriage like a blue-lipped ghost, hardly noticeable until a trick of the light drew it into focus. But you could always tell the days when it gnawed at my thoughts. You tried to comfort me. You stroked my face and curled my fingers to your heart. You said, if you pry, you'll destroy our marriage. But oh, my love, you lied. What? I was like, okay, tell me more. And then we're following the perspective of a man named the bridegroom. I don't know his name other than that, and he's retelling the experience of when he met his wife, who is this very dreamlike, enigmatic figure. They both bond over their love of stories and mythology. It reads like it's a fairy tale, like it has that feeling to it, but so far nothing magical has happened. It's just magical in the writing. So yeah, I'm enjoying the writing so far. This is, I think, the third book by Roshani Chokshi that I have read, and I have not enjoyed her books so far. I read The Star-Touched Queen and I did not like that, and then I read one of her middle grade books and I thought it was fine, but I didn't like really enjoy it. So I'm happy that I'm at least enjoying the writing so far, but we'll see how the rest of the book goes. It's looking good as of right now. I now have that much left of Last Tale of the Flower Bride. Things are happening. Things are happening. I'm definitely gonna finish this during the next sprint. I'm still feeling like it's 4 stars. Like I really like it. I don't know, there's something about it that keeps me from wanting to give it a 5-star, but I don't know. The ending could change that, we will see. But I love the writing. The writing is so like magical. I finished Last Tale of the Flower Bride and I really enjoyed this. I'm kind of surprised. I know this was on 3 of my BookTube twins favorites list, but when this book first came out, I don't know that I was super interested in it. I don't know, maybe I just like wasn't paying attention when people talked about it, but I really loved it. The writing was just amazing. I don't know how to explain this really, but it was so like deeply magical in the same way that like a child's imagination is magical. It's not a fantasy book. I want to say that. I feel like I've seen people categorize it as fantasy. I would not categorize it as fantasy at all. If this book was a house, okay, the house would be a contemporary book, but in the basement of the house is a fantasy book, but you never open the door to the basement. It's just there. It's just existing down there, but you don't actually go into the basement. Does that make sense? It's like there's a fantasy book in the next room, but you never go in there. It really reminded me of like the Wayward Children series, honestly, because there's this element to it where you have all of these characters who went through some trauma as a child and they're seeking to escape in this imaginative fantasy world that they've created, and that is their way of coping through their childhood trauma. And that really reminds me of the Wayward Children series, except the Wayward Children series, they're actually going to the magical worlds, kind of like Bridge to Terabithia vibes. I would say it's more Bridge to Terabithia than Wayward Children. I loved the second perspective that's in the past timeline. That was my favorite part of the book. So I'm going to be giving this 4 stars, 4.5 stars. It's not quite a 5 stars. And the reason is that I cared less about the bridegroom's storyline. I cared more about the past timeline, but I understand that in order for the ending reveals to be as impactful, you do need the bridegroom's storyline. Like, you need all of that context. I personally was just less interested in that storyline as I was reading, but it does make it worth it in the end. I just wish that part of the story was a little bit more compelling, but I loved this, and I'm definitely going to be reading whatever Roshani Chokshi publishes next, because this was just so amazing, and I'm so glad that Sarah, Laura, and Leonie all had this in their videos so that I could read it. I can definitely see why the 3 of them would really love this, since we obviously all have somewhat similar taste in books.
Kim Ji-young, born 1982, brought me out of a reading slump last year. Cho Nam-ju also reflects on how a patriarchal system can shift, alter, and toy with a person's life trajectory and their ability to voice their emotions. This entire book felt like What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish. It's I'm sad again, don't tell my boyfriend, it's not what he's made for.
So I'm very excited to read Kim Ji-young because out of all of the books that I'm reading in this video, this is the only one that I had never heard of before, which is crazy because I just looked it up on Goodreads, and every single one of my Goodreads friends who has read this book gave it 5 stars. Every single one. That is almost unheard of. I feel like I never find a book and I scroll through and every single one of my friends on Goodreads has rated it 5 stars. So that is looking very promising. It's a very short book. It is 163 pages, so I feel like I can read it in one sitting. And it says that it is Korea's new feminist movement. It follows one woman's psychic deterioration in the face of rigid misogyny. I don't have a physical copy of it, but I did get the audiobook on Audible, so I'm gonna be listening to it that way. I'm halfway into Kim Ji-young and I'm loving it. I don't have coherent thoughts for it at the moment. I will when I finish, but I'm already obsessed with it. Basically, we're following the main character, Kim Ji-young, throughout her entire life. So each chapter is a different period of her life. And it's really just chronologuing the experience of living and growing up in a patriarchy, of being indoctrined with these misogynistic ideas from the moment that you're born. It's so great. It's touching on so many different aspects of a patriarchal society. So I just ate dinner and I watched tonight's episode of Love Island to kind of, this book is a little heavy, so I was like, I need to break it up a little bit with some Love Island. But I'm going to listen to the second half right now and then we'll talk about it. Okay, I have officially finished. This is 5 stars. This book should be required reading. You know how I said that In the Dream House is a memoir that reads like fiction? This was fiction that reads like a memoir. Kim Ji-young feels like a real person. It feels like you're following the life of a woman who actually lived. All of the people that she interacts with feel real. And oh my god, the ending was a gut punch. The whole book actually is written as a clinical case study by her therapist, who's documenting what he has learned about her life through her therapy sessions. And I think something else that this book really highlights is the way that men will just never get it. They will just never get it. Even if they say that they understand, they think that they've come to some sort of understanding, they simply miss the point every single time. I also really do recommend the audiobook. Apparently, there are footnotes throughout the book kind of adding facts about Korean culture, which I didn't even know that there were footnotes in it as I was listening to it, because I feel like in the audiobook they fit in so seamlessly. Also, something cool about this book is that apparently the popularity of this book is what helped bring the Me Too movement to South Korea in 2018. This was so great. It's very short, it's a very quick read, but every single sentence, every single page is so impactful. It is so thoughtful with everything that it is detailing. I loved this. This was 5 stars. I'm so glad that I read this, and I would not have read it if Anshula hadn't put it on her favorites list. So I'm very glad that I had this opportunity to read this book, because I think this is one that's going to stick with me for a very long time. Lastly, we have my Riley picks. These are all books that either the booktuber really sold it to me, or I just really wanted to read. I picked 3 different books from different booktubers. Firstly, I picked You Again. This was on both Cindy and Jana's videos. It just sounds like a really great romance that I think I'm going to love. And I've been really looking for an excuse to read this book. Then I have Cursed Bread from Olivia's video. And this is one that I had not heard anything about. I actually bought it as like a cover buy just because it looked very beautiful. But then it was on Olivia's list, and the way that she talked about it just sounded so amazing. So I'm very excited to read that one. And then lastly, I have Heartstopper Volume 5, which was from Gavin's video. And this just feels very fitting to pick Heartstopper for Gavin, because when I think of Heartstopper, I think of Gavin. I got all of the volumes for Christmas, so this is just kind of a little self-indulgent way to let myself read Heartstopper for this video.
Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. It is a historical fiction. It's set during the 1950s in France. It is erotic, captivating, and utterly depraved. Cursed Bread explores infatuation, envy, marriage, hysteria, and obsession in a way that is so purposeful, because this novel is incredibly short. I think I read it in 2 sittings, and even though it has such a short amount of time to pack a punch, it completely consumes you and demands your attention.
So I've started Cursed Bread. I am just a bit into it, and I'm already really enjoying it. It's very interesting because it feels almost dreamlike. The writing feels very much like I'm reading a dream. There's just this quality to the writing that makes it feel like I don't fully know what is real and what's not. So this is being told by a woman named Elodie, and she is telling the story of what happened. So she's talking about what happened, and a lot of the things that she's mentioning, she even says like, oh, I don't know if my memory is quite accurate. Sometimes I remember it this way. Sometimes I remember it that way. I think that might be adding to the dreamlike quality of it. But she is telling the story of when she met this couple who moved into the town that she lives in. She is married to the bread maker in this town. Her husband is very much not interested in her anymore. He never pays attention to her. So she's very bored and very horny. This book is so horny. This new couple moves into town and she becomes obsessed with them. She's attracted to them. She's intrigued by them. She's obsessed with them, and this obsession just keeps growing and growing. And so she's telling the events that happened, but also in between the chapters are letters that she is writing present day to the woman from that couple. So there's a mixture of this like dreamlike narrative and also these letters, and the combination of those two things I love. I love letters in books. So I am really enjoying it. I do know that this is also based on a mass poisoning that happened in France. I feel like that's maybe what the book is gonna be leading up to, and I'm very interested to read about that. I don't know, so far I'm really enjoying the writing. There's so much atmosphere. I'm listening to the audiobook and just hearing it like being told, I am captivated. I am sucked in. I am sat. I finished Cursed Bread and I really loved this. Like the writing in here was just so great. I really could not put it down. I read it in almost one sitting. It definitely falls into that category of books that are very much just like inside one character's mind, hearing their inner monologue, very much like character focused books. Not a lot happens plot-wise in here. It's really just about this character obsessing over this couple. I looked up Goodreads reviews for this. This book is very hated. People do not like this book. And what's interesting is a lot of the 1- and 2-star reviews for it, I agree with. I just personally enjoyed the things that they're complaining about. I would say that this is for the readers who like A Certain Hunger, women eating, like that style of books where it's like all vibes, no plot. I really love those. And those are also books that are like kind of more divisive. I am gonna be giving this 4 stars. The reason why it's not 5 stars is because I do wish that we got more of that poisoning plot. It was very much something that like happened at the very end of the book and then wasn't explored a lot. So I was kind of waiting for it the entire book, and then it kind of was anticlimactic, but I almost feel like that plot line was more a backdrop plot line, and it was more about this woman's obsession, which I really enjoyed that. I was just excited for this poisoning plot line also, but I definitely recommend it if you like books in this style. If you also liked A Certain Hunger and women eating, I would definitely recommend reading this. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I picked it up.
And number 9 is, of course, Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. It gave me a lot more, like, warm feelings, and seeing the relationship between Nick and Charlie blossom and grow and become this really beautiful love story is just so amazing. And I just think it's one of the best volumes so far.
It's a really nice day out, so I thought it would be the perfect day for me to read Volume 5 of Heartstopper. I'm so excited. I just reread all of the first 4 volumes, and I watched seasons 1 and 2 of the show, so I am like in the biggest Heartstopper mood right now, and I just really want to get back with Nick and Charlie. They're so cute. They are so cute. Okay, I finished Volume 5. Oh my god, I loved this one. I really loved this one. It was a lot lighter and cuter than Volume 4, which was very heavy and like dealing with a lot more heavier topics. This one was more about Nick and Charlie deciding if they're ready to take the next step in their relationship and be intimate together. So it was just a lot lighter, and I love them. I love their relationship. It's so cute. The way that they like communicate with each other and just how they really help each other through their like issues and insecurities. Oh my god, do I hear that? I loved this. I don't know. I've never really rated any of the volumes. I think I would give this one 4 stars if I was rating it. I'm not very good at rating graphic novels. I just don't know. So maybe 4 stars, but I love it. Oh my god, I'm so sad. I think the next one is the last one. I do not want it to be over. I would read 1,000,000 of these volumes, honestly.
You Again has become my favorite romance book of all time because I ate this shit up from the very beginning that I read it. It feels like the perfect modern day New York City rom-com. I just really love seeing the characters banter with each other and seeing them clash heads with one another because their values in life are so different. It made me so curious about how these two could possibly be friends. So I love seeing their strange friendship start to blossom. I love that it didn't start off as romantic and that it was platonic.
And I also love that this had a queer main character, and also this character in the past had been in a polyamorous relationship. And I just really like seeing we're getting more like diversity in not only sexuality, but also in like relationship structures. Like we need more of that, especially in traditional publishing. I don't think it's played with enough.
I'm feeling myself in a little romance mood, so I'm going to start You Again by Kate Goldbeck. This romance has been compared to When Harry Met Sally because it is about 2 people who keep meeting over the course of many years, and they always kind of like fight or argue. The last time that they end up meeting, they kind of fall into this friendship, so it's kind of like a friends to lovers rom-com vibe. I also think that it is queer in some way. That's what I've heard. I don't know, this just sounds like the perfect book for me to read today. It is raining outside, it's super gloomy, and I kind of just want to snuggle up in bed and read this whole book right now and hopefully have very cute rom-com cozy vibes. Oh my god, he's a chef! Another chef romance. I genuinely don't know what it is about chef romances. I just love them. First we had 7 Year Slip. Now this, I'm obsessed with them. I think it's because I love to eat. And if you cook for me, I will fall in love with you. So like cooking is a love language to me. And I just, oh my god, I love it. I'm so excited. I didn't even know that going into it. I don't think it says that on the back. The heroine is also a comedian, which I didn't know also, which I think is fun. Comedian and a chef. This is very cute so far. I am 40% into this book. If they don't kiss, I need them to kiss. I'm actually starting to sweat. I'm like getting hot. The slow burn is burning. It is burning hot. I need them to kiss. I love slow burn romances, but this is killing me. The chapter that I just read, I won't spoil anything, but it's when they're in like a particular elevator and they almost, and I'm like, also, I don't know if I said this takes place in New York and it's really fun just knowing all the different places that they're going to. Like right now they're at the Strand. I've been to like so many times and I just think that is fun. It's like the perfect New York rom-com. It's giving me the vibes of like You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally. I guess it's just giving me the vibes of Meg Ryan, which let's be honest, Meg Ryan rom-coms were the best rom-coms. If Meg Ryan was in a rom-com, I was sat in the seat. Okay, not a full update. They kissed and it was well worth the wait. I ended up reading this whole book in one sitting. It was so good. I was kicking my little feet. It was so cute. Another 5 stars. One thing that I loved was that this took place over many years. From the time that the characters first meet to when they like start dating is like 7 or 8 years. And then there's even more time that passes later in the book, like another year. And I don't know, I just found that very realistic. I find that a lot of times in romance books, they happen over such a short period of time that I'm like, y'all really fell in love that quick? It's been like 3 months. The first like 75 pages of this book is them meeting at different points over the course of 8 years. I really liked that. They just keep having these like random encounters at different stages of their life and like popping in and out of each other's lives in very significant and often negative ways. When we finally do get to like present day where they're actually meeting again and actively being in each other's lives, they're both at their lowest. Like they both just got out of very serious relationships where they were the one who was dumped. So they're kind of like misery needs company. And I just love the slow unfolding of their relationship from two people who kind of don't like each other to then becoming friends when they're both at their worst, and then that friendship developing into a romance. I just found it all to be very, very realistic, the course that they took in their relationship and how it wasn't perfect and it was messy because they're messy. I also love that the heroine is the one who was like the messier character and more like of a commitment phobe. She had more issues with long-term relationships. And it's interesting because I was reading reviews on Goodreads. I always do this whenever I love a book. I want to see why people hated it to see why they're so wrong. One of the critiques that people kept making was that they hated the main character because she was so messy and because she had all these alternative views of relationships and monogamy and preferred more casual relationships. And I just find it so interesting how much harder people are on romances where the heroine is the one who prefers casual sex and the hero is the one who's like, no, I want a wife, I want to fall in love, I want a soulmate. They're so much harsher on those female characters when the reverse is literally every romance ever. Every single romance is like this playboy who just sleeps with every woman in the world. That is literally the plot of every romance ever. But when it's the heroine, y'all got something to say. I love the casual queerness in this book. The main character is queer. She has relationships with men and women. She has polyamorous relationships. That's actually how they meet because he is dating her roommate who she's having a casual sexual relationship with. And I personally related a lot to this main character. I loved the way that it ended. This to me just feels like the perfect rom-com. Like, oh my God, if this was a movie, it would eat so hard. It would be so good. It would be giving like the old school 90s rom-com vibes, but more modern. It really did feel like Nora Ephron. Like it had those vibes. I just loved this. 5 stars. Amazing. Also, one thing, apparently this was Reylo fanfic, which I don't get at all, other than how the characters look. Like, I mean, they obviously look like Rey and Kylo Ren, but other than that, it was not giving Reylo whatsoever. So that actually like really surprised me. I kept seeing reviews being like, oh, not another Reylo fanfic, which let's be honest, all of the Reylo fanfic romances I've read were so good. So if loving Reylo fanfic is wrong, I don't want to be right. So we have made it to the end of this vlog. I have read all of the books and I had so much fun reading all of these booktuber favorite books over the past month. Here is my final rating of all of the different books. My 3 favorites were definitely You Again, In the Dream House, and Kim Ji-young, born 1982. I had a bunch of 4-star reads that I really, really enjoyed. And then unfortunately, 1 2-star, but overall, I really loved everything that I read. I'm gonna have all of the booktubers that I talked about in this video linked down below, so please check them out. They're all amazing creators. And then, like I said, I have an extended version of this vlog on my Patreon where I read books that I found on booktubers' best books and worst books videos, and I put them head to head to the test. And let me just say that one was very interesting. Welcome to the roast. I'm not about to say nice things. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So yeah, I'm giving this 1 star. So you can join my Patreon and check that out if you would like to see it. But thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.